This is John Murphy at MurTech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on February the 18th in the year of our Lord 2026. And guess what? I've got some great information for you tonight. Let me go ahead and jump over here, MurTech on Rumble. Okay, this is my Rumble channel. And this is the video we're going over tonight, episode 1842. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it, so whatever. Let me click in that and close out the live chat here. By the way, if you want to chat with me, that would be great. If you just put a chat in there and say hi, or how you doing, or tell me where you're from, or what you like, or what you don't like, I'll respond to it. Okay, let's slide down here. Let me click the Show More button to expand out the description box. And we have information here from Dan Bongino, Dr. Steve Turley, McWattersaffect, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do have some shout-outs to give from T-Bird7712, just started following my channel. Rob at Southern Fried just started following my channel. M Harv1214 just started following my channel. John Andier just started following my channel. Michael Chan X just started following my channel. Jill Zito just started following my channel. Clergery just started following my channel. Oh, that's Unclergery1515 just started following my channel. And Junior 1986J just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. Sorry if I mispronounced your handle. I didn't catch it. But I do appreciate you following my channel. I hope you're tuned in tonight, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay. Uncloudy and Debbie BS commented on my episode 1841. Debbie BS commented on my extra 622C and 623A and 623B and 623C. So let me give that a thumbs up. I appreciate your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I certainly appreciate your support. Okay, now I copied this into a comment. And as soon as I did, I happened to look at my little notification bell, and I had three more comments from Debbie BS, where she commented on my extra 624A and 624B and 624C. So thank you, Debbie BS, for your extra comments and your support. So let me give that a thumbs up. All right, I got all those in there now. Got that off my chest. Whew. All right, Dan Bongino. Interview with Kash Patel. Now, we probably won't get into the interview with Kash Patel, but he does have some interesting information at the beginning of his video. I will include this in my daily news wrap-up, so if you come back when I start that, you'll be able to see the rest of Dan Bongino's video. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get this going and take it from the top.
Very well done, guys. Perfect timing. So, there's a reason, folks, that the lib commie media class, although I just said the same thing 3 times, wants you to believe that Antifa is an idea. Now, I know you're probably thinking, yeah, they're just a distraction. Yeah, of course it's a distraction. It's all of the stuff you're probably thinking. But there's an actual reason for this. I bring this up because I saw an article pop up yesterday at MSNOW, which is what we'll be calling it from now, pun intended, on. MSNOW had this article by the absolutely hapless Brandy Zadrozny, who amazingly has a 100% success rate of failing, which is incredible. That's really hard to do. That's a perfect batting average of failure. And in this article, they're going back again to the idea that Antifa, given the spate of Antifa arrests, is an idea. But there's a reason they're doing it. They want these Antifa folks. Well, let me stop. First, the left has always had shock troops on the street. When you look at collectivist, socialist, commies throughout modern human history, they have always had a group of shock troops on the street honestly to beat the shit out of you if you speak up. That the left loves that stuff. They've always had their shock troops on the street. They've always used violence to shut you up when they can't steal your money through collectivism. The problem they have in the United States is we have federal laws, and states probably have them too, against organizing criminal activity. RICO statutes, for racketeering. If you organize to conduct criminal activity in the name of some group, whether it be La Cosa Nostra or Al Qaeda, they can use these statutes. It is not legal for you to organize. You can organize a Boy Scout meeting. You can't organize a freaking terror attack or a rackets operation. You can't. So the left needs Antifa on the street for their shock troop operation, and they love it as an intimidation factor if you speak out against them. And they want to take advantage of all the benefits of organizing: money, social media exposure. Hey, show up on this corner and beat the crap out of some MAGA people. They want to take advantage of all of that, but they don't want to pay any criminal penalty for their shock troop people on the street. So they say, well, it's not an organization, it's an idea. You get it? I say this because forgive me if I'm wrong. Send me the clip. I'll play it if you guys have it in the chat or elsewhere. If anyone else has said this in the media, I don't want to steal their idea. I haven't heard it yet. That's the reason. It's not just the distraction and all that other stuff. Yes, that's true. They want to organize while avoiding criminal penalties for organizing. So the left will come out there and constantly say things like Antifa is just an idea. Again, why did I bring this up? Here's MSNOW, Brandy Zadrozny. She knows exactly what she's doing here with this bullshit here. This just came out. Federal investigators hadn't previously focused on Antifa for good reason, according to this guy she cites, the DOJ's former counsel for domestic terrorism. Antifa has always been construed as more of a politics or an activity of radical opposition to the far right, as opposed to an actual organization, Brzezinski told MSNOW. It strains credulity, he knows. The headline of his piece is, Trump wants to prosecute anti-fascists as terrorists. This Texas trial will test his power. Folks, in Prairieland, Texas, there have been upwards of, and again, I'll address this with Director Patel later. I was there for this, with that attack. There have been upwards of 20 plus arrests for Antifa-related activity and violence there. The left is freaking out because if the prosecution convictions roll through as the process starts to just wrap up on this case, they're in a world of trouble because they're not going to be able to take advantage of their criminal organizations and the use of money flows and everything like that. The president is dead set on cracking down on criminal organizations and acting violence in the street to further some political ideology. Zadrozny knows exactly what she's doing here. The left will cover up any amount of abhorrent criminal activity as long as it advances their cause or scares the shit out of you into silence. I want you to remember this in case you missed it. We played it a couple weeks ago. This was the former FBI director who didn't take this stuff seriously. Putting out there into the political equal statement. This wasn't a statement from a professional law enforcement officer who knew what he was doing. This is Christopher Wray talking about Antifa, implying that, oh, it's just an idea. This is how we're looking at it. No one's looking at it that way now. Not in this FBI. Check this out.
We look at Antifa as more of an ideology or a movement than an organization. To be clear, we do have quite a number of properly predicated domestic terrorism investigations into violent anarchist extremists, any number of whom self-identify with the Antifa movement. And that's part of this broader group of domestic violent extremists that I'm talking about. But it's just one part of it. We also have the racially motivated violent extremists, the militia types, and others.
We changed all of that. We went in there and dumped all of that bullshit stuff that he's talking about now. And we refocused them on these groups that are clearly, I mean, one of the guys just locked up recently, put up that Bill Melugin tweet, had a shirt on, I'm Antifa. No, you're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. You can see it yourself. I thought it was just an idea. And this was the Wray thing you just heard, Christopher Wray, make no mistake, went out there into the ecosystem because it provided air cover for politicians like Joe Biden and others who wanted this air cover because they don't want these people off the street. Here's Joe Biden in the debate arguing with President Trump during their back and forth, again, implying somehow that Antifa is just an idea because they want these people out there. Violence is their coin of the realm. Check this out.
Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia.
You see what happened? You see how that worked? Ray gave them the air cover to go out and allow them to organize out there without any of the penalties of organization and organizing criminal activity. Oh, it's not an organization. It's just an idea. Again, I haven't heard anybody explain that before. And over the past year, breaking down and the organization claims it is the only way to stop them from preying on innocent Americans and the spate of violence happening with them now. It's not just there, folks. You know, what spurred me to talk about this yesterday is this recent episode, again, of trans violence. Another thing when during the past year, I'll address with Director Patel again later. But they weren't looking at this at all. This is a very real and tragic phenomenon that's resulted in all too many homicides and violence, whether it's Nashville, Minnesota, now see, was it Rhode Island, this latest tragic news story. But the Democrats, the liberal media, their commie buddies, and their useful idiots will cover this stuff up. They will do anything to avoid you looking at the problem. They want you to treat a sore throat when you're dealing with a cancer. They don't want you to deal with the problem because the problem, at least in the case of the shock troops with Antifa, is useful for them because it's meant to intimidate you from going in the streets and exercising your right to assemble too. They always needed the shock troops. Their focus on the trans issue and their ignoring of trans violence is a totally different issue. It is a cover-up of criminal activity on their part, but it's for a different reason. Democrats need you and the liberal media need you in boxes. They will create a box. It doesn't matter what it is, union, non-union, women, man, black, white, Jew, Muslim, Catholic, whatever. They will put you in the boxes and they want you all apart. Now keep in mind, you may not put yourself in that box. You may be Catholic or Jewish or whatever it is, but you just see yourself as an American, a mom, a dad, whatever it is. You practice these things, this religion, but you don't identify as that exclusively. They want you in these boxes. That's why LGBTQIA 1+2, they keep adding all of these categories. The more categories for them, the better. Because then they can put you in a category, whatever that is, LGBTQIA 2+1 spirit, whatever it may be. They're going to tell you how much the MAGA crowd and Republicans hate you in that category. So they need to expand the categories. But when the categories they start to expand start to look like they're causing a problem, i.e. giving cross-sex hormones to kids in the developmental phase of their lives, they can't cover that because then the category blows up in their face. Watch this. This is CNN about the latest episode of trans violence. And there's a certain word that's left out in this. They start with an interview of one of these young men who was there and witnessed it. Check this out.
Against the door and just tries to stay safe down in there. But it was very scary.
Police say the shooter took his own life and apparently was targeting family members. The Pawtuxet police chief said one person in the stands tried to disarm the shooter and helped end the attack.
Interesting how they leave out all the details. Man and address. I mean, that's kind of important, is it not? I told you, folks, these people will cover up for any amount of criminality or whatever it is, as long as it advances their ideological ends. Just freaking tell people the truth, man. It's not hard. I mean, you're in the journalism field, right? Your entire job is to give people a data set of facts and inputs so they can produce an educated output. If you screw up the inputs, the output's always going to be a mess. That's why nobody trusts institutions anymore. The media did this. Just tell the truth. This is the Dems' calling card. As long as something works for them, criminal or not, make it go away. You see it with the SAVE Act. I'll get to that in a minute too. Voter fraud is a crime. Cheating in elections is criminal. You cannot go and steal someone's ballot and vote for them. You would think this would be a bipartisan enterprise out there like, hey, we want free and fair elections. Why do people not trust institutions in the process? Because the Democrats are vigorously fighting any measure of voter integrity at all, despite the fact you got to show a freaking ID to buy like an allergy medication in your local Walgreens. And you wonder why people don't trust institutions. You guys know this Nick Shirley, this entrepreneurial young independent journalist out there who busted open the Minnesota story? Well, he's got another video out. This one about voter registrations. We've seen it. Folks, this is one of those videos. You would think the Democrats and the media people would be all over this like, wow, this looks like a real problem. People aren't going to have faith in elections if what he's putting out in this video is even remotely true. Check this out.
Because she's 100 years old and she voted last election from here.
Can you see my? I said I want.
I just want to make sure you're not 126 years old.
No, I'm not.
And do you think it's possible illegal migrants could be voting?
Do you know where the ballots might have gone? Like for 100 people that were registered here?
When it comes to fraud, most people think about money. However, there's another potential massive fraud story taking place in America, one tied to the most consequential system in our country, which is our voting system. This has to do with everything about who runs the country and how elections are actually controlled. And if we don't have voter integrity, what even are we? And there's one state that is the breeding ground for potential voting fraud, and that is California, where it can take up to 1 month to count all of the votes, no voter ID, and millions of ballots are cast by mail.
Folks, 1 month, that's not an election, okay? That's a recipe and a witch's brew for fraud. A month to count ballots? Are you shitting me? That is not a uniform standard across the country. That's a California thing. They isolate you from the truth. This is how they cover up criminality, whether it's an Antifa operation, voter fraud, massive fraud inside of government, which we saw in Minnesota and elsewhere. They cover it up through the gaslighting process. Lie about it, lie confidently, lie often, and isolate you from the truth. They isolate you from the truth, like you saw in the CNN clip, by isolating out and leaving out key facts of the story so your inputs are wrong, so the output's going to be all screwed up. Again, that's why nobody trusts institutions anymore. You saw this massive fraud in Minnesota, and now they're freaking out because AI is going to be transformative when it comes to government. Over the last year, I dealt with, we had a Doge guy who'd come around and take a look, and it was one of the best things we ever did. There's been a culture change thanks to this president, the efforts of Elon and the Doge, the government efficiency. That did not stop, by the way. There was a culture change in government. I saw it, and it is freaking the left out. They are absolutely panicked about this because as these Doge guys went in and looked at this stuff from an outside perspective, they were like, why the hell are we doing this again? Like, nobody does it that way in the private sector. I think we cut out something like $300 million in expenses, which is not small. It's not a couch change you find in the couch. It's a good amount of money, and there's more to come.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here and move on. And as I said before, I will include this in my daily news wrap-up, so if you want to see more of this, it's coming. It's coming. All right, let me click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from the Dan Bongino show. This is the video I shared with you. I've following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And let me close out the chat. I was chatting a little bit here. And I wish more people would chat with me. But let's slide down here and see what Dr. Steve Turley has to say about woke anti-ICE teens get violent with police. Then this happens. So, it's kind of like the same lines that Dan Bongino was talking about, where they cause all this turmoil and bullcrap, let's just say, because that's what it is. This has been said time and time again on the reports that I've shared with you here. ICE is just trying to enforce the law. Okay? And these people are just going absolutely nuts because they're being pushed into it. They're being brainwashed. So let's see what Dr. Steve has to say.
Reached new lows of desperation. the hysterics have largely dissipated in Minneapolis, all as the Trump administration has set new records in mass deportation numbers, over 3.5 million and counting. The left is tired. They're increasingly feeling defeated, demoralized. They can't win elections. They can't win arguments. And they can't stop the single most popular president in a generation from enforcing the law. So what have they been reduced to? They're now recruiting kids. They're pumping them up full of rage in the classroom, marching them out in the streets, and telling them to go confront law enforcement. And what happens next proves that the era of pampered, pathetic liberals has indeed come to a decisive end. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, back in the studio after a wonderful week in the sun. You were with me, of course. We did a number of videos from the beautiful Florida Keys, but it's great to be back with you here in our study where I help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do if you haven't already done so. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Enumclaw, Washington. It's a quiet little town at the foot of the Cascades, about an hour away from Seattle. But just days back, it became the center of a new round of anti-ICE activism. On February 13th, roughly 100 to 150 students walked out of Enumclaw High School in the middle of the day for an anti-ICE protest. Well, they marched over a mile through the streets. They chanted, "No justice, no peace," screaming obscenities about immigration and customs enforcement. They carried signs. They blocked streets. And when independent journalist Vivian Ivey and her colleague Danny Rebel showed up to document what was happening in our nation's schools, well, right away we could see that these students were out of control.
Immigrants built this country! I need to know what energy drink she's drinking. I need one.
But then that same megaphone nut took things to a whole new level.
Yeah, for them, especially just standing there.
So as you just saw there, Megaphone Mary, as we'll call her, she's now been identified as a 17-year-old student there at the school. She decided it'd be a good idea to punch Ivy's colleague, Danny, square in the face, knock off his glasses, send his phone flying. And she thought that would be a really, really great idea to do it in front of a camera. Most likely because she's never been held accountable for her actions in her life. Now, I gotta say, I don't necessarily blame this girl. As we'll find out, she's just a pawn. She's just a useful idiot. She's a skull full of mush, as our dear Rush Limbaugh would say. By the way, 5 years ago today, he left us. I can't believe it's been 5 years already. No one will ever replace him. But unfortunately for Megaphone Mary and some of her friends, moral ineptitude on their part doesn't shield them from the law. That's right. That's the new slogan for the cultural Marxist revolutionaries. I want my mommy. I mean, that was the very definition of F around and find out. And this is a perfect symbol of the progressive left and what they've been reduced to. They gather together as hysterical mobs, screaming profanities and obscenities at men and women whose only crime is that they are faithfully enforcing the law. And when they do, when they put these hysterical lunatics in handcuffs, they immediately melt. They melt down into full-blown temper tantrums, screaming for their mommies, even though moments earlier, they were all cosplaying as revolutionaries. But what we're about to find out is that Enumclaw isn't an isolated incident. This is happening everywhere, and it's not spontaneous. It's being deliberately orchestrated from above. But first, gang, the big medical hack of 2025 means a cheaper site to making the year new resident teachers across the country. The National Education Association, the largest teachers union in America, has been blasting out anti-ICE propaganda to teachers across the country, urging them to rally against immigration enforcement and turn their classrooms into political battlegrounds. I kid you not. In fact, the NEA reportedly pushed teachers to attend anti-ICE training sessions over the last month. The Iowa State Education Association, and keep in mind, Iowa is a thoroughly red state, but their education association posted on its official social media calling on teachers to wear blue to school to protest ICE and stand with Minnesota and teach their students to do the same. The Washington Education Association did just that. These aren't grassroots student movements. What you just saw there wasn't a student-initiated protest. No wonder why she was screaming for her mommy. These are activist events orchestrated by adult revolutionaries embedded in teachers' unions. And here's what makes this truly insidious. Over 98% of the NEA's campaigns, their campaign contributions, go to Democrats. 98%. Again, these are our public schools. I mean, this is the very definition of the kind of taxpayer money laundering that we first saw exposed with Doge and their shutting down USAID, which turned out to be nothing more than a front for funding left-wing causes all around the world to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. At their annual convention last year, the NEA passed resolutions pledging to combat Trump's, and I'm quoting them, Trump's fascism. Actually, I'm not quoting them. They were mercilessly mocked because they actually misspelled the word fascism. Fascism, or is that fascism? I don't. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the state of American education. All right, these guys are all the proud products of the Laring Center, I guess. It's beyond pathetic, but the results are exactly what you would expect when our education associations are taken over by radical cultural Marxists. In Issaquah, Washington, teachers helped students launch an anti-ICE protest that turned violent. Students actually ended up beating up a mother, and the school principal acknowledged the violence but refused to condemn it. In Dallas, students walked out and blocked traffic. In LA, protesters threw rocks at federal agents, sending 3 to the hospital, 1 with a concussion. And in that same city, a teacher named Ricardo Lopez was fired on the spot after he opened a locked gate so students could leave campus to join an anti-ICE walkout. The United Teachers Los Angeles Union has been caught planning ICE resistance activities and offering teachers service learning hours for engaging students in what they called community self-defense. But that's nothing compared to Minneapolis public schools, who've had students learning remotely for weeks, not because of a snowstorm and certainly not because of some supposed pandemic, but because of ongoing ICE activities. Again, I kid you not. They literally shut down the physical location of schools for anti-ICE performative politics. The principal goal of these radical woke lunatics embedded in teachers' unions is not academics. It's activism. That's what you've got to get. It's activism, not academics. They see the classroom not as a place for academics. Instead, they see the classroom as a social engineering center dedicated to cultivating radical Marxist activists. Now, the good news is that parents are waking up big time to this. 27 governors, even including Democrat Jared Polis of Colorado, they've now opted into President Trump's federal tax credit scholarship program. That is the most significant school choice expansion in American history. It's more than half the states in the union. You got states like Texas and Florida threatening real consequences in all this: suspension, expulsion, even state takeovers for districts that turn classrooms into activist training camps. And the Teacher Freedom Alliance is offering free liability insurance to educators who want to leave their union but without losing their protection. Because the anti-ICE walkouts have exposed the truth that millions of parents have long suspected. For the teachers' unions, this was never about the kids. It was always about control. It was always about using your children, exploiting your taxpayer-funded classrooms as an indoctrination pipeline for a radical political agenda. It's time to take the classrooms back and send these radical leftists packing once and for all. Hey there.
Absolutely. I agree with him totally, 100%. Let me know what you think, folks. But this, this organized bullshit is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. All right, and I guess there's crazy enough people out there to do it. I mean, it's happening. But I just don't get it. I don't get where these people are coming from. All right, this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what else we got from McWattersaffect on Massachusetts Auditor uncovers $12 million in fraud. Politicians stopped audit. Huh. Imagine that. I wonder why a politician would stop an audit when they found fraud. Let's see what they have to say. Amazing, isn't it, folks?
Saturday in America, continuing to track fraud allegations all across the country. We've seen it in Maine. We brought you some questions about some funding that allegedly was misused in Maine. Those were private donations. Then California. And now, here's the next state, Massachusetts. Now, the state's auditor just released a report revealing massive fraud within programs like Mass Health, the Department of Transitional Assistance, and the Department of Early Education and Care. These are all programs that provide social services to the Massachusetts community. And as you can see, there was over $4 million in fraud uncovered in the state's SNAP program alone. Another $1.3 million connected to the state's Mass Health program, and hundreds of thousands of dollars found in other state programs. We're also learning of 22 civil recoveries that reclaimed nearly $800,000 in fraudulent overpayments. Now, the total amount of fraud in fiscal year 2025 alone was nearly $12 million. That's in 1 year. That's your money. Now, as all this fraud is being exposed, President Trump is reportedly planning to sign an executive order establishing a new fraud task force. Signaling its importance, it will be led by Vice President J.D. Vance.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about Massachusetts and the fraud that's going on there. As you heard, they're talking about $12 million. Now, when you compare that to Minnesota, you're like, ain't that much. But it doesn't really matter, guys. 12 million is 12 million. We need to find out exactly what's going on here. And this auditor who found so far $12 million in fraud, she is a Democrat that used to be in the House and Senate and the state legislature, and now she's an auditor. And right now she's being blocked by Democrats from actually doing more investigations into fraud in that state.
Yeah, the $12 million is just a fraction of what could be out there. I mean, she's being held up and not being able to complete the audit she would like to do. We're going to dig into this, guys. We would really appreciate if you'd like, share, and subscribe.
All right, in this next video, Kelly McEnany is doing an interview with her, talking about what's going on in Massachusetts. Let's check it out.
Last week on Saturday in America, we brought you a report from the Massachusetts State Auditor's Office revealing widespread fraud within many public assistance programs. That report showed nearly $12 million in fraud identified in fiscal year 2025 alone. The state's auditor, Diana DiZoglio, says these findings underscore the need for greater oversight, something she's trying to do right now with the state legislature. Now, DiZoglio says she notified the state legislature earlier this year about a performance audit. The House and Senate leadership refused to produce necessary documents, and the Attorney General, she says, refused to step in. And now DiZoglio is filing a
So pretty much the House and Senate are not actually working with her, giving her the documents she needs to actually do the investigation, do the audit. And even the Attorney General of the state is not helping her and making the state officials in the House and Senate to comply with her request. The thing is, it is normal for you to do audits. All states do audits on their social programs. And the thing is, if you don't do an audit, what it means is you're actually trying to facilitate and hide fraud.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the only reason you would dodge audits is if you know they're not going to come up correct. You know what I mean? They're going to show you committed fraud.
Complaint with the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court seeking to enforce a 2024 voter-approved law approved by 72% of voters. And that authorized audits just like that. Now, according to the auditor, this isn't a partisan issue.
So not only not willing to actually comply with her request, they're also breaking the law. And a law that actually passed by 72% of the people of the state that voted for it.
Sounds like someone needs to be held responsible once again.
72% of the general public, the voting population in the state, went out and said that they want increased transparency and accountability via this office conducting an audit of the state legislature.
With me now, Massachusetts State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. And by the way, we have reached out to the Attorney General's office for comment as well. You know, Diana, you were a former member of the House, a former member of the Senate, and you are a Democrat. And you are suing former colleagues, you are suing members of your own party. And I'm wondering, why do you think they're dragging their feet?
You know, I think that that's what everybody wants to know, right? What are they hiding? If there's nothing to hide, open up the doors, let the sun shine in. Let's do this audit, right? This is something that 72% of voters came out to support, crossing party lines. You had progressive Democrats joining together with conservative Republicans and essentially saying that they want this audit to get done. This is about transparency and accountability. This is not about whether you support the right or the left. This is about coming together and getting access to documents that should be a matter of public record. But Kaylee, actually here in Massachusetts, we are the only state in the nation that unfortunately has a legislature, governor's office, and court system that exempt themselves from the state's public records law. So this audit has been viewed by many as simply a way to get access into the inner workings of the legislature, namely getting access to basic financial receipts and taxpayer-funded records such as state contracts.
72%. I mean, that's a massive mandate to do exactly what you're doing. You're just trying to do your job. I'm curious, this fraud that you found, the $12 million total in fraud in 1 year.
Unfortunately, it sounds like to me you got the same problem here as you do in Minnesota, as other states. What's going on is these, in my opinion, these politicians are benefiting from this fraud politically. That means they're getting donations from the people that are committing it. And not only that, due to their allowing it to happen and facilitating it, these people are voting for them as well en masse.
She said the magic word, contracts. What they're paying out money to and to who. And was the process fair? Was it, a closed bid? I have a feeling that there will be many more millions to be found just in that one little slice of the pie, contracts.
Do other states conduct audits like this?
So it's my understanding that, yes, many other states have state auditors. They have inspector generals. generals, and they do this type of oversight. We in Massachusetts do this work as well. We do it, in my office from the state's perspective, overseeing state resources, state grants, and different state funding opportunities. The U.S. attorney here has also done some work pertaining to fraud, rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, looking at those federal issues, having a little bit more investigatory authority than my office has. But look, we're just trying to make sure that there's integrity in these systems. I'm someone who was born to a 17-year-old single mother, grew up housing insecure. My mother relied on WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. She put herself through school. She became a nurse, and we were able to move forward and support ourselves and become tax-paying residents of the Commonwealth. A lot of people rely on these programs, but folks who are committing fraud need to be held accountable.
I think the problem with a lot of these programs is people like her and her mother that actually started in the program and got out of it as time went on, and they worked themselves out of it. A lot of them decide to actually stay in it because it benefits them, because they don't have to go out there and work hard. And unfortunately, you have this section of not only Americans, but also illegals and just immigrants in general that have come to the United States, that are born in the United States as well, that get on the dole and stay on the dole. And what it does, actually, in my opinion, is turn them into slaves to the Democrat Party, because they have to vote for them to actually make sure that they keep their livelihood as it is. Not only that, there's also groups of those people that commit fraud, like we're seeing going on in Massachusetts, Minnesota, and so on and so forth. And in my opinion, what really needs to happen is, instead of this honor system we have on these social safety net programs, we need to have something where they have to prove that they are who they say they are, that they deserve what they're getting. And at some point or another, they're going to actually work hard and get off of it. And unfortunately, we don't have that here.
In the state I lived, Wisconsin, they are really cautious with the money and with the checks. And the ultimate goal is what her mother did, to better herself and get off benefits, because it is a form of slavery to continuously vote for the Democratic Party, waiting decades for them to throw you a little crumb, which was the problem that, I live by Chicago, and they're very angry there. They've seen all these immigrants get moved in and get thrown thousands of dollars a month, and yet these people have been waiting decades for several $100s to benefit them in one way or another. And that's how you get jammed up in these social programs. It doesn't do anybody any good, especially you, if you're living to not work and just take in what you can. That's not a good life.
We need to root out that waste and fraud and abuse so that these systems are working as they should, and people truly in need get these services. But, this is not the biggest issue in Massachusetts when it comes to those programs being abused right now. What is happening is our most powerful politicians here in the state of Massachusetts are turning back at their own voters, at their own electorate, and they're saying that the law doesn't apply to them. That is unacceptable. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. The law is the law. And people of Massachusetts, they just want to know how their tax dollars are being spent. This was something that the Democratic Party of Massachusetts endorsed, and the Massachusetts GOP also endorsed. And now we have a handful of politicians who, think that they're above this law, just sticking it to the taxpayers and saying they're not going to comply. So I am taking this issue to the Supreme Judicial Court. I hope that the courts side with the people of Massachusetts and not the politicians. The Constitution is there to protect the people, not the politicians.
So not only was this law bipartisan, as well as, like we said, the people voted for this. But these people that are high-profile Democrats in the House and Senate are not complying with it. Why? Because they think they're bigger than the law. They think they're more important than the law. It sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. Sounds like what we're hearing from D.C. and from some of these talking heads when they go on there on like CNN and MSNBC and talk about voter ID. And they say that their constituents are wrong. And I'm like this, dang how democracy works. Democracy works. The majority has the power. And the majority of people in the United States, 84% believes the voter ID is good. So that means it's up to you as the representative of your constituents to go out there and vote for it, just like they did here in Massachusetts. And unfortunately, the people that are in Massachusetts are not complying with this law and not doing this audit that needs to be done to actually see if there's more than $12 million of fraud. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg in Massachusetts.
Right. And it's the same thing with all of these programs that we're seeing. And the people that are overseeing them, they don't want you to really look at the books because the books are all cooked. And there's people getting benefits left and right that don't qualify for them. And then that money circles back to the candidates. You know, they don't just get to say, we don't want to follow this law. That's what's happening all over the US. It's like Joe Biden brought 30 million people in, contrary to state law. We paid them out, hundreds of billions of dollars in lodging and food and medical care, like untold amounts, because they don't want to follow the law. Now, if we're going to be a society that doesn't follow laws, maybe we best not pretend like we do follow them. I don't know what the answer is, because to me, you have to follow the law, except for, as you can see in Massachusetts and Minneapolis and California and Illinois and New York, you don't have to follow the law.
All right, there you have it, folks. And that's certainly the way it seems, doesn't it, that the Democrats don't have to follow the law. It's unbelievable how they continue to get by with it. All right, let me click on this Rumble link, and that's one of the reasons that I share this out, so that folks, you can see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears what's going on. The mainstream media is saying, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe your lying ears. This is what really happened. All right, this video does come from McWattersaffect. I am following the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All righty then. Let's jump back here and see what Wendy Bell has to say with It's Us versus Them. Okay, and she's going to tell you right here that she's going to piss you off. Okay, so let's take a listen.
Trump, for the entirety of this political life he has been light years ahead of all of us. I joke, I say, I bet you he's a time traveler, right? I'm only kind of kidding, because it is uncanny how he seems to be in control, and he doesn't go up or down, he doesn't yell, he doesn't get upset. He's very steady, very based. But he's got a bigger view of what is going on further down the road. And if there's no other reason than that you voted for this man, then that is more important than all the other politico mumbo jumbo that's going on out there. We have a system of government that long ago our founding fathers created in a certain way. They'd come off of the heels of a monarchy. They didn't want to have a king. They wanted to be able to be represented if they were to be taxed, right? They said, hey, we will pay, but we got to have a voice. You can't rule us. That's not the way this fledgling experiment is going to go down. And they spent a lot of time, and they were well beyond their years crafting those documents that are the foundation of our constitutional republic. Now, you'll hear Democrats saying that democracy is what's at stake. You and I well know we do not live in a democracy. And the left pushing that repeatedly, banging that drum, always about, democracy this and democracy that. We live in an environment in which those people, the elected leaders who are supposed to be chosen by us, represent We the people. They're not some rogue nation that gets to make decisions unilaterally and then carve you out of it. And then what's even worse, right? They can't carve you out of it and then come back at you year after year and ask you to bend over and pay more because they can't get enough. I think most people, when they go to Congress, they're somewhat naive. They see something they want to do. There's a leadership position. Obviously, they feel they've got some kind of a role to play in it. And we're supposed to believe that we select them. But we know right now there are more than just a handful of people in Congress who we didn't elect. A system did. A broken system. A bureaucracy that covers its own ass, if you will, and never looks out for we the people. So when I say to you, it's us versus them, I'm a conservative mom. The us I look at is through conservative lenses, through common sense. I love America, and I want what's best for my children and people I love. That is my lens. You can be a Democrat and feel the same way. And Donald Trump is making a pledge to you. He is making a pitch to you if you're not a Trump fan. He is saying, I'm going to drop on you a series of video clips, evidence that I want you to pay attention to. These are not new clips. We've played them for you before. And I want you to pay close attention because in city after city, in state after state, things didn't add up. And they weren't supposed to. There was no way for them to. The coup, the heist, the theft, the greatest slap in the face of the collective we the people in our American history happened on November 3rd, 2020. Look, I can be butthurt that it was my candidate that got boned, but we all got the shaft. They allowed us to pay for, to be overtaxed and to be given stuff, actually, to be privy to the greatest theft, the COVID theft of our children and our grandchildren's future dollars. They told us it was for the greater good. It was never great, and it was never for our good. We are in this collective together. You might not like me because you think I'm a Trumper. I am. You might not like me because I'm a MAGA extremist. Well, I got news for you. I am guilty as freaking charged and proud of it, because when I say to you, I'm all about making America great again, because you know what that word means, America? It's all of us. It is us, 330 million-ish people versus 535. You mean to tell me that you are well past your elected leaders giving you the bird, sticking their finger in your eye? You're not tired of your taxes going up and yet never having anything to show for it? Are you not tired of candidates who promise you that they're one thing and then they go to Congress and become something totally different? Are you tired of them passing all of these stupid measures in the darkness of night when nobody had a chance to read them, and then smugly smiling at your face and lying to you and telling you it's for the better of democracy? And Donald Trump is telling you there is a way out of that. And it's going to take work. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a collectivism that blurs all of those silly boundaries that we think divide us. Because when you look at this as us, these United States of America, and them, the 535 bureaucratic schlubs who long ago stopped giving a rip about us, there is no way to lose. Absolutely none. That, my friends, is what I believe this president is going to start playing in more serious fashion and more frequently for you, so that it stumbles upon your news feed and you're forced to sit there and say, Why does this seem so phony baloney? How is it possible that 13 million people in Pennsylvania in 2022 voted by mail when the state only has 12.8 million? Are you telling me that every man, woman, and child, and an additional 250 that we don't know of, voted? Because that's what the numbers show us. Wake up. Do not be blurred by their hatred of one man. Realize that hatred of one man is because that's the dude who's going to open the zipper and show us what's really at stake. This is a big day in my household, and I've got my heart in my mouth right now. I've got a lot on my mind as I think about the fight we're in as a country. At the end of it, no matter how you vote, or how you look, or who you love, how much money you have, or your zip code, we all want the same things. It's time we start demanding them. And I will warn you in advance, coming up in this program, I'm going to make you angry. I'm going to tell you something about the people who stand there on Capitol Hill with their stupid lapel pins, and they tell you that they're on your side, that they're the fight for you, that they're all that they say they are. I'm going to tell you a little something about how hard these individuals work and what will be required for the Save America Act that will once and for all make the cheating freaking stop so that we, the people, can believe in our elections again to make it come to that vote. There's going to be some sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen. But the good news is it's not going to be on your shoulders. I think we've all paid enough of a price. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, on the heels of Harry Enton telling us Donald Trump's approval is so bad. I mean, like, there's no much lower. It's so bad. How low can you go, right? Well, now we got another one that's like, no, not really. He's doing quite well. Who do you believe? Well, listen to the people desperate to convince you of the narrative next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right. Well, I can't wait till she pisses me off. That's I'm looking forward to that.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, I commonly say on this show that I really don't trust polls. I really don't trust pollsters. I think that their questions are commonly misleading. I believe most people have inherent biases. I sure as hell do. Why would I think a pollster wouldn't? And I think that we have to look at them kind of, you know, with a kid glove, kind of gingerly, and look at them as trends, more interesting than, I don't know, definitive. Well, this one from the Morning Consult, a poll taken a couple days ago, it says rank Republicans versus Democrats on issues. And I was thinking about it's us versus them today. Well, if you were to look at your Republicans and your Democrats, who do you trust more to handle the following things? National security. And that's a no-brainer. I mean, wide open borders and all that jazz, what Trump is doing. It's Republicans by 10. Republicans are trusted by 10 over Democrats. Immigration. I'm glad to see this is finally leveled off. It's Republicans by 8. No duh, right? Open borders versus let's get everybody out. The national debt. Who's adding more to it? Well, we both do. Who's actually got a plan to try to carve it down? Republicans by 5. How about trade? The voters apparently trust Republicans by 5. Taxes, Republicans by 5. Foreign policy, Republicans by 4. The economy. It's ridiculous. It should be way higher. Republicans by 1. And energy, this is the only thing where Republicans and Democrats come in as a tie. The only 4 issues that Democrats outperform Republicans in terms of who do you trust more? Medicare, which is preposterous, right? Stealing from Medicare, maybe. That's Democrats by 12. Healthcare, again, preposterous. Obamacare, really? Democrats are more trusted than Republicans by 13. Abortion, Y'all can have it, all right? Democrats more trusted by 15, and the whole LGBTQIA plus alphabet, Democrats trusted by 25. Okay, so what? All of the important metrics, I think, the things that we, the people, regardless of political party, need to get behind, those are represented: national security, immigration, national debt, trade, taxes, foreign policy, and the economy. Which brings me to what I believe is the most powerful audio of today. So there was something that happened, I believe it was yesterday. There was a GOP lawyers conference. And at this lawyers conference, I don't know the details of where it was, who went, blah, blah, blah. C-SPAN was there. Must-see TV. And they had a camera on Tom Homan. And he was getting up talking about the various surges of federal law enforcement in our cities, where far too many criminals and criminal illegal aliens have taken over and have terrorized American citizens. Tom Homan got up and he said something off the cuff from the heart with tears in his eyes that represents why I vote the way I do. I don't hear Democrats speaking about things like this. They tell you they're about compassion and about humanity and about kindness and about joy. But they're not. They don't care about the kids that are missing. And until we write that, until we find these children, who are we? Here's Tom Homan.
Out now. We're showing up at parking lots, vacant homes, but we're not going to give up to every one of these kids are found. So we just found one 2 days ago, an example, 14-year-old little girl living with 2 adult males who trafficked her, and we found her she's pregnant from trafficking, being forced into prostitution. 14 years old. So we're taking care of her, both physically and mentally. Despite what the media says, we're not heartless. We care about these kids. I'm a father. And the reason I'm so emotional and so hard, headstrong on this issue, because I've dealt with dying children throughout my career. I've held dying children. I've held dead children. I talked to little girls as young as 9 that were raped multiple times by the criminal cartels. I'll never forget it. When you get on your knees to talk to a 9-year-old little girl, everything innocent and pure is ripped from her, and she don't believe in humanity anymore because you got a bunch of animals crawling on her, taking everything pure from her. You'll never forget it. That's happening every day through this trafficking, and we're going to put an end to it. Everything we can do.
Isn't it amazing how the Democrats are fighting against this? Just think about that, folks. If you don't share anything else out, this you need to share out, because this is what the Democrats in Washington, D.C. and all those teenagers screaming and F ICE and F you, this is what they're fighting against. It's people like Tom Homan trying to rescue little girls from getting their lives destroyed. Okay? We need to share this out. I'm sharing it with you. Do me a favor and share it with others.
See, that's not a script. Those aren't a PR firm's talking points. Those weren't tested, in focus groups. That's a man who cares. I voted for that. I voted for that. Meantime, in Minneapolis, while Tom Homan and those federal agents were finding 3,324 missing unaccompanied children who came into this country under Joe Biden, the Democrats on Michigan's, or Minneapolis's rather, city council were threatening to take away the liquor license of 2 hotels that provided those federal agents beds and comfort. That is the choice. That is where we are. So all the polls in the world can tell me that this president and this administration are rock bottom polling. I will never believe it. Because nobody on the left says those things. Nobody on the left looks you in the eye and tells you, I care about you. Nobody on the left says, take my hand. Let's make it better. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, no wonder nothing really ever gets accomplished in Congress. This is the part I was alluding to in the monologue. It's going to piss you off. Made me angry. Like I work 250 days a year. What about you guys? Right? That's the normal 50 weeks usually, something like that. 250 days a year. When I tell you what they don't do in the Senate, and now they're hemming and hawing about having to maybe put in some extra time to pass this SAFE Act.
Goodness.
Are you kidding me? Oh my. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network. Wow.
All right, I'm going to pause that there and include this in my daily news wrap-up, so please join me then. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, jumping back here. I'm going to close out the chat again. These videos that I've shared with you are videos that do come directly from the producers, okay? I've got the links to the videos themselves, as well as the links to the producers' channels. So you can check those out. I don't get any commissions or royalties for doing this, folks. I'm doing it to share information out so people can have an understanding of what's actually going on out there without having to rely on the lying legacy media. Now, I got a comment from Debbie BS on one of my extras. Now, normally when I do an extra, I try to raid another channel. My my C episode, the one I do last during the day, I try to raid Wendy Bell. Well, I raid her channel, and it comes up, and I play, a few seconds of it, and just like everything else, sometimes the audio comes through and sometimes it doesn't, but this is my definition of insanity. I keep doing the same thing over and over again, yet I get different results. Whereas everybody else's insanity definition is, well, you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you expect different results. Well, that doesn't work with me, because I do get different results by doing the same thing over and over again. Why? I don't know. But at any rate, I apologize for that, but that's just one of those things. Okay, and these videos that I've shared with you here are videos that I've posted over here on Murtech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Your one-stop shop for information that you're not going to get on the mainstream media. The truth. Okay, now, if we come back over here to my daily news wrap-up playlist, got a lot of great information in here. It says I got 20 videos. I've got about 9 hours, 10 hours worth of information. I've got the Wendy Bell video in here right there. And Dan Bongino, I need to rearrange this list here and set up my Rumble Studio. So go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a beer, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here at 9:30. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless. Bye.